Good morning. I was reminded recently of a book by somebody called J.B. Phillips, no relative of mine. And he wrote a book called Your God is Too Small. And as I thought about the title of the book, I thought, how big is my God? Is my viewpoint and understanding of God too small? And it's a good question for each one of us. Is our understanding and concept of God growing day by day? Somebody once said, God made us in his image and then we return the favor. We kind of made God in our image, with our limitation, with our kind of weaknesses. We kind of think of him as, yes, being powerful and being wise, but just a little bit more than all the wisest people together, all the most powerful people together. But he's way larger, way more powerful, way more loving. Often when I run prayer meetings, I have this phrase, look up before you look out. And what I mean by that is, before we begin to pray for, let's say, a country, a region of the world, or even when we begin to pray for a specific individual, for whatever it may be, we need to begin by starting to look up, to focusing on God, on his nature, on his power, on his ability, before we begin to pray from these things, because it's easy to begin to focus and pray for those things from the place of fear or hopelessness or being overwhelmed. But when we start by looking at God and considering God and letting our hearts and our concepts of God expand, then it will affect how we pray and what we pray. And I think this concept applies not just when it comes to prayer, but to living our lives. And so my desire today is to take some time just to expand our hearts, so that we'll go into this day not just praying with expectation, but living with expectation. Because it's easy to know the concept. You know, we even give it terminology. God is omnipotent, meaning all powerful, omnipresent, everywhere. And yet not really understand that deep in our hearts in such a way that affects our lives. It's easy to quote verses like Jeremiah 27 verse 5, which says, with my great power and outstretched arm, I made the earth and its people and the animals that are on it. So a simple phrase, my great power, I made the earth. And we can just rush by, but let's slow down this morning. Let's supersize our perspective of God. I don't know about you, but my children like to go to McDonald's, and they kind of come into their age now where a Happy Meal is not sufficient to fill them up, sadly. And so you often get this question, would you like to supersize it? And I feel like God's asking us that question this morning. Would you like to supersize your understanding of me? And their answer would be yes. And just like with McDonald's, if you want to supersize, you have to pay a little bit more money. And so there is a cost to supersizing our understanding of God. And I think that cost is just time to contemplate and reflect in such a way that our understanding and perspective is expanding. We're going to do a little exercise in a minute, and you could come out of it thinking, well, that was interesting, but it didn't affect me. But I can guarantee this, that as you take time to ponder any attribute of God, as you supersize your understanding of it, your heart will expand, your capacity for joy and peace and faith will increase. Your problems and issues will diminish or disappear as they become insignificant or not important. So just take that phrase, my great power, I made the earth. The earth is amazing. It's staggering. My daughter's studying marine biology, and I ask her questions. And if you watch programs by people like David Attenborough or The Blue Planet, it's just staggering when you look at it. I'm told that there's like 900,000 different types of insects. The variety of animals, elephants and lions and great white sharks. It's amazing. And we keep discovering new and new species. You get something like creation, just even like the first bit of creation, where God said, let there be light. And there was light, and we kind of move on to the next verse. It's just mind-blowing. When he said, let there be light, light was released. And it goes at 186,000 miles a second. Every second, It revolves the earth 7 times that distance. To put in perspective, the sun is 94.4 million miles away. If we drove 65 miles an hour for 24 hours a day, 365 days a week, it would take more than 163 years to get there. Yet the light that left the sun that you feel on your face this morning only took 8 minutes to get there. And then when we talk about creating the earth, and we talk about galaxies, well, we've discovered so far roughly around 80 billion galaxies, and we keep discovering more. And I could go on, but let's just take some time just to reflect on his great power, on his creation, on all the different 8 billion people there are and how different each one of those are and different characteristics. And let us supersize our understanding of God. It is so crucial.